right, so it's 5 after, so in spirit of time, make things short and sweet. Again, I just want to welcome everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started now. Oh, maybe. Don't know. There we go. So a quick breakout as we do every meeting, just kind of giving you an idea of who's here. Again, the majority of our users tend to be around that beginner intermediate. I'd like to call out the experts and Jedis, you know, if you guys are looking to speak, even the intermediates. If you don't feel like you have something to contribute, I'm sure there are things that you work on in, you know, your everyday use of Tableau, and I guarantee everybody in this community has something to offer, whether that's even just showing, you know, how Tableau works in your community. Please reach out to me if you do have an interest in speaking, whether that's just, you know, to practice your speaking ability, and we can even work on a topic together. So we do have a very good range of Tableau user levels, and we'd love to hear from each other. So reach out to me. Industries should be no surprise. Pittsburgh, right? Healthcare and finance are our biggest industries here. So that's where most of you are coming from. And then we do have a good bit from education, a lot of universities in Pittsburgh. And then you can see some other groups here, technology, manufacturing, etc. If you look at the bottom, this time we don't really have, our big players aren't really standing out huge amongst the rest. Normally our PNCs, our BNYs really stand out, but I think we have a really good mix of people coming from all over. Hopefully that's because, you know, we're now virtual and more people feel that they have the opportunity to take a break and share some time with us. I also wanted to point out to you guys that there's going to be a new skills tug challenge. So what does this mean? All you're going to do is I'm going to send out probably via Twitter, LinkedIn, and I'll probably even send out an email that I'm going to send out a link that's going to be unique to our Tableau user group. And all you have to do, it's about a 3-minute quiz. And you're just going to ask you about how you use Tableau. And then it's going to provide you essentially a recommendation of how you can up your skills and kind of get more guided resources directly to how you're using Tableau and what products you're using. The bonus here is that the more of our community members that participate in this challenge, they're going to be counting us. We get the opportunity, the winning tug is going to get a Q&A session with Tableau's Chief Product Officer, Francois Agentsat. So if you've ever heard him speak, if you went to TC20 this year virtually, he's a phenomenal speaker and he knows the ins and outs of Tableau. So to get the chance to grill him on whatever you may be wanting to know about in the upcoming year or just Tableau in general would be awesome. So please consider participating since it is a very quick quiz, and be on the lookout for a post regarding that. I also wanted to point out, in case you guys have coworkers, family members, friends, anybody in the data community that you wanted to find a last-minute Christmas gift for, or maybe even just for yourself, I put together a nice wish list here of analytics and Tableau and just data-related resources. So hopefully you guys recognize a lot of these. Makeover Monday, Storytelling with Data. She actually has a new version that actually has practice questions in it and producible content. So those are really great. Obviously, the Big Book of Dashboards by Andy Cockgreave and Steve Wexler. Anything by Stephen Few and Edward Tufte. I got a lot of recommendations for those. Too many to almost share. And then the DataViz Society actually put out over 200 books on their list. So I will share this with everybody so that you have those links in case you're looking for something. So onto our agenda. Maybe, I don't know why. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about Tableau Server's PostgreSQL repository. Joe, who I'll introduce in a bit, is going to run us through setting up the repository, connecting to it, sharing it with non-admins, and give you a bunch of useful resources and tips for how to take a lot of this useful data and share it with the people that it can benefit. After Joe, then, Jim is going to walk us through Tableau's order of operations. If you think you're an expert in Tableau or you're just starting out in Tableau, this is going to be a great talk to really understand, you know, the order of operations affects all the calcs that you make in your worksheets, and really understanding, you know, how to properly implement those so that you're producing accurate results in the dashboards that you present. It's probably one of the most important and least understood parts of creating a viz. So Jim's going to kind of walk us through his process that he's established for really kind of developing that foundation that's just going to set you up for success in your building. And then finally, we're going to have a fun Christmas Kahoot quiz. I'm going to tell you about our next meeting, and we have the chance to win some prizes, so please stick around. All right, so our first speaker is Joe Cornibe. Joe, please correct me when you speak. He is a Tableau Server admin and architect for Greater Lakes Behavioral Research. He has basically served in this role for all of Allegheny County's Department of Human Services, and he has done this for the past 3 years. So he's a local, found out he lives in Lawrenceville like I do, so we are neighbors. He actually has the Tableau Server Associate Certificate. So any of you that are looking to get that, Joe should be a great resource. Hopefully you don't mind me sharing that, Joe. I'd also love to know any tips or tricks that you had in preparing for that, and I will share that with the group. He also administers Rundeck. It's an operations automation tool, and develops fiscal reports for Oracle Data Warehouse. In his free time, since we all seem to have a lot of it these days, he spent the pandemic hiking with his family and listening to John Prine. Our other speaker is Jim Dehner. He is an owner at Market Analytics LLC, so he is a freelance consultant. Jim is also he is a 4-time Tableau Forum ambassador, so he has literally helped thousands of people on the forums. If you've posted anything, it's a good chance that Jim has probably helped you out, or you've come across his name if you've done any Google searches where you've used forums to help you answer questions. Jim has a blog. It is aimed at the Tableau newbie, anyone who's kind of looking to get beyond getting started. I included that link here. And he also has a Tableau public site. So this public site is where he posts a lot of things that he develops to support his blog, as well as just a lot of how-tos that can be very helpful. So I'll share that link. Even the presentation that you guys are going to see today is on his Tableau public site. So if you want to get on there, it's obviously his site's going to be a great place to learn. Jim is actually a Nashville resident, and he is very active in Nashville's TUG. In addition, he presents to Tableau undergraduate and graduate students in business analytics. So I welcome you both, and I thank you both for agreeing to speak today. Just a very quick pointer for everybody. So as you enter, you are muted. So we encourage you, if you do have questions, please post them in the Q&A box. I will be monitoring that, and we will answer questions at the end of each session as time permits. If we happen to not get to your question, I'll still make sure it gets answered, and I'll post any outstanding answers afterwards in a follow-up email. So during the sessions, again, feel free to use the chat to say hi, share any information during the meeting. If you guys know of any other books that should be on my wish list, please feel free to put them in there, and I'll add them to the list. The session is also being recorded, so we will share that afterward as well. And then any materials that Joe or Jim share with me, I'll put on the Google Drive, as we've done for every meeting. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the screen over to Joe, and I will let you have at it, Joe.
All right. Hey, fantastic. Jen, thank you so much for the introduction. Happy holidays, everybody. I hope you're doing well, and I hope you have an opportunity to enjoy the snow. Before we get started, I just want to thank Jen again. She does an absolutely fantastic job, and it's a whole lot of work to organize these, and we all benefit so much from it. So thank you very much, Jen. We'll take questions at the end, and what I can't answer in the Q&A at the end, I will follow up with Jen in writing, so she can share that with everyone, as well as this presentation. All right, hopefully everyone can see my slides at this point. So I'm from a company called Great Lakes Behavioral Research, and we all work for the Department of Human Services in Allegheny County. I won't go through all of this, but particularly of interest to this group is the crux of what we do for the data analysis within the Department of Human Services involves about 50 internal and external data sources, including things like children, youth, and families applications, medical examiner records, 9/11, jails, courts, schools records, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And our sort of secret sauce, what we're able to do with this is create a structured data model containing some 1.5 to 2 million distinct clients per year. And we're able to, with a lot of accuracy, not only identify these clients, but identify demographic information about them. And then we can do a whole bunch of neat analysis with that. If you want to look at some of that work, I linked to some articles below, particularly in the New York Times Magazine, Can an Algorithm Tell When Kids Are in Danger? That's artificial intelligence using the aforementioned data. Also a similar initiative called Hello Baby, using that same data set with artificial intelligence to help new families in Pittsburgh. Additionally, I put some links into some of our dashboards, including dashboards on our website, a COVID dashboard, air quality dashboard. A couple of things about me that I'll say because it's relevant to this group. Jen mentioned that I earned my Tableau Server associate by passing the exam. The exam, I think it's difficult. You know, what I would recommend is spend a lot of time in the documentation and Tableau's documentation for both server and site administration. Know that sort of documentation inside and out because it's an open resource test. And then when you take the test, you know, the strategy I used was, you know, answer every question initially, even if I have no idea what the answer is and where to find it, because there's so little time. You know, that you may get a chance to come back and answer and research a few things, but you sort of want to spend, you know, a minute or two on each question and give your best answer, and then move on. A lot of the questions fall into the category of essential stuff you need to, you know, be an administrator for Tableau Server, and then there's a bunch of stuff that also gets into the minutia, and it's the minutia stuff that I think makes it challenging. More, I think, importantly, I took the Tableau Server architecture course. This is the best course I've ever taken from Tableau or on Tableau. It's absolutely phenomenal. As part of this course, we get to create a 3-node high availability environment with a load balancer in front of it, fail over one of the nodes, fail over the repository, and it's a really great offering to understand how Tableau Server works. So I you know, recommend both if you're interested. All right, objectives for this talk, they're twofold. We're going to understand what the Tableau Server Postgres repository is, how to configure and connect to it, and the most helpful resources for using it. And we're going to identify use cases for the repository and the business problems it can solve for you and your organization. I realize with this audience, we might be dealing with about, I don't know, 1 in 10 people who are actually Tableau Server admins, and then maybe another 20% who are site admins or doing some site administration. And then maybe the remaining 2/3 are primarily Tableau publishers or developers. I intend for this to be relevant to all 3 groups. And I think to get the most out of this, you know, don't worry about any of the resources. I've linked to and annotated them extensively in this presentation. You'll have access to it. But just be mindful of something that interests you, of a business case that could help you or your organization, or some data that, you know, you may have not thought previously was available that is available, and maybe just make a note of that. And then with this in your hand and some other resources, you can go forth and, you know, make good use of it. All right, real quick about the environment that I'm in, and you know, the fact that yours may be different. I'll be in Windows, but everything will generally apply to Linux, particularly where you're hosting Tableau Server locally or in the cloud and licensing it with Server Core. Role-based licenses, this should apply to as well, so long as you actually own and control the Tableau Server that is being, you know, that has the role-based license. My understanding is that if you are using Tableau online, the repository is not available to you. If you're paying a third party to host Tableau Server and access it as part of a multi-site, you want to just ask them or ask Tableau, hey, do I get access to repository data? It should be technically possible for them to open up at least some of that for you. More specifically, I'm in the Department of Human Services, but our instance of Tableau is for all of Allegheny County. It's actually a multi-site. Different parts of the county use different sites. We have guest access enabled for one site. We're running it currently on a Windows Server 2012. We're running Tableau Server 2019.3, and we license 8 core perpetually. I'll do a couple examples that are in Azure 2019 Windows Server using Tableau Server 2020.3. We're actually in the process of migrating now from a local VM to Azure. So we'll get into that. All right, Postgres, real quick. Postgres stands outside of Tableau. It's an open source object relational database that uses and extends the SQL language. And it just so happens that Tableau Server uses the Postgres database or Postgres database architecture for its application. Data that's included includes things like users, groups, permissions, projects, data sources, workbooks, HTTP requests, extracts, and more on Tableau Server. We're going to be working in what's called the workgroup database. It provides persistent storage for Tableau Server and is primarily used to support the Tableau Server application. We'll actually touch the application and we'll watch it wiggle in the database so that you can see, how actually this really is the database that the application uses and that we're going to use for some reporting. If you're in the UI for Tableau Server, as we will be here shortly, most anything you're seeing in the UI is going to be living in this database, and we'll illustrate that. The repository structure and contents may change. It does change from upgrade to upgrade and without warning. So, it's possible that you could build something and, find out that after an upgrade that's broken. Don't let this stop you from using the repository. And in fact, there's resources in the repository, mostly views that tend to be more stable than some of the application tables. We'll get into all of that. Typically, when something breaks, you just find out what field changed or moved or whatever, and you modify it, eliminate it, and then things work again nicely. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but I thought some disambiguation may be in order because Tableau offers a lot of really useful tools with the Postgres repository. I've listed several, but not all of them here. So it would be, I think, appropriate for someone to ask, hey, I use the Tableau Server REST API, to make calls to Tableau Server, like get workbook, and it gives me, 15 attributes of a workbook based on the workbook ID. Why would I want to use the Postgres repository? And while there's a lot of overlap with the repository and these tools, the repository is unique in one, it's read-only. So you're not actually adjusting or changing the application through the repository, whereas the API, you could do post and put request, and you can actually change the application or the state of the application. But more importantly, with the repository, you're going to be able to create data sets and model data sets that are far more extensive, right? So if I need workbook information, and I get some of that in an API call, well, okay, but I also need, hey, who owns the workbook and what project folder does it live in and who's viewed it and when does it refresh? And so piecing that together with the API would be absolutely tedious. You wouldn't do that. Instead, you would use the Postgres repository, and then you could create whatever data set you need for whatever business problem you're trying to solve. I'll leave this here so that you can refer to it, but just a rundown of good tools, how they're similar and how they're different, and we're focusing on the repository today. All right, configure repository access. I just want to make sure everyone understands how simple this is, since a lot of people aren't Tableau Server admins. So we're actually going to do this. We're using a tool, it's a command line tool called Tableau Services Manager, and we're actually just going to list and then enable this repository. I have the commands typed out already just to make this go as smoothly as possible, but I thought this was worth showing because it's really simple. It's like not anything too terribly complicated. But if you're not a site admin, it may seem like, oh, well, configuring the repository, that's hard. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to say, hey, let's go into TSM, Tableau Services Manager's command line tool. I logged in. I'm in there. I just say, hey, what's the status of the repository access? So I'm just running TSM data access repository list, right? And I'm going to get some statuses. And there's two users or accounts. There's the Tableau account and the read-only account. And you'll see that both of those are set to false, which means they're not enabled, right? So we're just going to enable them. So we're just going to run this command. I set a password. If you're doing this, in real life, you're not going to go share your password with like 74 participants like I am now. I'll disable this when we're done. So I'm just going to run this, right? And it's going to say, hey, it's going to perform a server restart. Are you sure? Yeah. Before I restart this, though, I'm just going to show you one more thing. I'm going in the Tableau Server TSM UI right now, and I've actually configured the repository SSL to require an SSL connection for all users. This is what I recommend doing. There may be cases where you want to make it optional or turn it off, but that's just the other part of the configuration. So anyway, I'm going to say yes to this, and I'm going to run this. right? And it's now going to start configuring the repository, okay? And you can see, enabling the maintenance app, and the UI is showing the same thing, enabling the maintenance app, right? We're just going to let this simmer, but that's really what you have to do to configure the repository. There's not too much to it. So that's configuring. All right. If you're doing this, or your admin is doing this, the repository is going to use port 8060 by default. You may want to use some commands like telnet, with your server name, to make sure the port's open, not only on the server, but also if there's a load balancer in front of it. And then if you're ultimately accessing this from a client machine, like I will be today, and probably, you and your team might, you'll want to make sure that that IP address is open and accessible from your client machine. We're not going to do that here, but it's really as simple as that. You saw that I, in TSM, configured the repository SSL to require it for all connections. That's already done. So at this point, all that's left is just to connect to the repository. So let's go do that, right? So I'm opening, this is actually a new Tableau workbook, and we're going to just go connect to the thing. I'm using actually a different repository than the one I just enabled. The one I just enabled is our Azure environment, which doesn't have real data behind it, right? So blank workbook here. We're going to connect to data. We're going to connect to Postgres data, right? This is my server name. This is my port. I've enabled the read-only user. You may have the Tableau user enabled. You may have both enabled, but you connect through one or the other, and it's dependent upon the resources you're going to see. I'm requiring SSL. You saw that from Tableau Services Manager UI. I'm just going to enter a password. Right, so I'm just entering a password, and then I'm going to sign in, right? And it's going out to that repository, and it's connecting to it. And we see all of a sudden, now there's stuff in here, right? Not only is there stuff, there's 273 tables. And I can start working with these 273 tables. Let's use a simple one. I'll just bring it in, right? Application table, right? There's an ID, there's a name, there's URL namespace, there's the status of the sites table, right? And we can start working in here. If you're new to Postgres though, and you're new to the Tableau repository, I'd say don't start working quite yet, because there's some resources that are going to make it much easier for you to hack your way through these 273 tables. And we'll get to those in a second. All right. The main resources, there's a lot, but two of the most important are the data dictionary, right? And this is the Tableau Server data dictionary, and it goes through these 273 tables. I think there's actually more in 2020.3, and it's actually going to show you, first of all, hey, we enabled the read-only user. Well, these tables are available to only the read-only user. Here's the table name. Here's the description. I can scroll through hundreds of these, right? And then also available to the Tableau and the read-only users are these tables. And most of these are actually views, right? And not only can I see, okay, well, what's the table or view name? What's the description? I can actually click on it. And when I click on it, I'll get all the fields that go in the table, the data type of the field, and a description of it, right? So this is a really good resource when you have to get into the tables to start, understanding, well, what does this table show? What's the grain of the table? What are the different data types of the fields in the table? And what the heck do those data types mean? All right, so this is absolutely essential. But there's other resources. And in priority order, if you're going to be working in Postgres, or if you've been working in Postgres, these are my top three. Something called Tableau Server Insights, something called Tableau's Administrative Dashboards, which if you're a site or server admin, you've probably seen or used before, and then do it yourself. I'm calling do it yourself off-piste in memory of our little ski season at Boyce Park that's not going to happen this year. So these are the three ways in priority order. Notice the off-piste do it yourself. I recommend that last. Like, see what people have already done for you, see how you can use that, modify it slightly, whatever else. And if you're finding that it's not answering your questions, then you can, go into the jungle with your machete and do it yourself. All right, Tableau Server Insights. What is this? Well, it's 6 expertly curated data models with time, URL, and connection parameters to plug into your repository and start analyzing. The guy who does this, his Tableau, his name is Matt Coles. He has a video. And the title of the video is Stop Building Custom Atom Views the Hard Way, Just Stop. What Tableau has put together here, as you'll see in a second, is just awesome. And there's so many good things about it. But Matt's view that you should never build custom admin views the hard way is, I think, maybe a little misguided. There's at least 3 good reasons why you would need to build a custom admin view instead of using the insight data. First among them is that the data you want is not in server insights. But enough on that. I do encourage you to watch the video. Okay, so that's going to take us to GitHub to download insights, right? This is all linked to in the presentation. So, once you have the presentation, you'll have all these links. We can just click code and download it. Well, what the heck are we downloading? Well, we're downloading 6 workbooks with the data already modeled for us. This just basically says, if you're using Tableau 2019 or later, you can use the 2.02 version of these workbooks. And if you're using 2018.3 or earlier, you have to use the earlier versions, right? And it provides instructions for how you can use these. It provides the main data source and some notes on how frequently it's updated, and then how you should publish it to Tableau Server, live connections, extracts, and whatever. So let's actually take a look at that right now, because this is just a phenomenal resource, and it's worth some time. Okay, so here's one of these, and this is probably the most intuitive of the Insight resources, right? And it's called TS Content. And when you download TS Content, like I did, you get a dashboard, right? And here's the dashboard. But what's really important here is the data set, right? And this is the hard work that Matt and his team have done for us. Modeling the data so that we have the data in a way that's going to be useful and meaningful to us, right? So all of this right here is extremely painful to do, on your own, particularly if you don't know much about the 273, application tables and views, right? So this has all been done for us, right? So by all means, start in the workbook, because we get really nice descriptions of what data is being modeled, right? TS content right here. So we get some information. Well, hey, this data source contains the 3 main types of content: views, workbooks, and data sources. There's 1 row of data for each item type. So right away, we get the grain of the underlying data. So each record should represent 1 data type, right? And then, it says, hey, extract the data for performance reasons when you go to publish it. Okay, fine. That's great. And we can see right here, we have a count of views for our site, workbooks, and data sources. We have our content, and we have top authors. I've filtered this a little bit to make it more friendly, right? Not only can I click on my content, but when I do, I can actually go to the workbook viewer data source. That's already built in. When I click on my authors, I can actually click on the author, and if I want to automatically email the author, there's a congratulations email built in. We don't want to do that now. So that's just sort of a hint of what's behind here. Now, in the instructions in Git, there's parameters, right? And we need to make sure we enable the correct parameters. There's 3 of them for most of these. There's the Tableau server name, the Tableau server protocol, and the time zone, right? And these are so that the URLs work for our specific environment. So, we have tableau.alleghenycounty.us. That's our server name. It corresponds with the DNSA record. We have our protocol, which is HTTPS. We're running this securely with an SSL cert behind it. And we have our time zone, which is Eastern Standard Time, right? So once we enable all of this, then this is going to be really fine-tuned for our environment, and we can start, exploring the data, right? And so what's cool about this is that the data is modeled in such a way where we're not only getting data sets, views, and dashboards, we're getting who owns this stuff, right? We're getting the project that it falls under, and not only who owns the project, but what the user's email is. So, I like to start building this out in a crosstab just to get a feel for the data. But you can see here how detailed this is and how useful this is, right? Because, if you're a site admin, if you're a server admin, hey, I may need to, contact the owner of the dashboard, or I may need to contact the owner of the workbook that the dashboards and data sources are in, and so on, right? And all of that's built in for you. And so it's just super useful. Don't see the dashboard here and think, oh, well, this is the offering. It's a dashboard. It's really the data behind it. And in fact, on Git, they say, hey, publish this as a data source, separate from the workbook, and then, then connect to it, and then, do whatever visualization you need to. It gets even better. They automatically add in row level security, right? There's a field here for row level security. It's called user filter, right? So I can go to this user filter field, and I can actually edit its row level security permissions. And I'll actually do that right now, right? Notice the user filter here is set to 1. Let me get rid of the admin permission, right? And then let me update it. Watch what happens to those ones highlighted green. When I apply this, a lot of those ones go to 0 because I got rid of the admin rule, right? And it's saying, well, hey, you're logged in here and I know you're an admin, but it doesn't matter because the row level security no longer depends upon admin. And so, at this point, if I drop this user filter field into the filters, set it to 1, I have row level security and I can manipulate the rules however much I want to. You can, illustrate it here with the login user. I'll find a user who's not me, and watch what happens to those ones. I'll let's see here. Find a user who's not me, log in as that user, and now here the row level security would be essentially restricting everything for that user. But there's a whole lot that comes with this right out of the box. And so if you've been a repository user for a long time and you've never used insights in the data, I would recommend, take a full day, go through these half dozen data sources, understand what's there and how they're structured, because there's a lot of extremely useful stuff. I'm not going to go through the other ones because of time and other things, but you want to do each one just like content, right? You want to download it, you want to read the notes associated with it, you want to update the parameters so they reflect your environment, and then you want to start modeling the data and look at how rich the data is and how potentially useful it is. There's a lot there. So that's our first of 3 sort of approaches, right? Tableau Server Insights. The second one is Tableau's administrative dashboards, right? And so Tableau has pre-built administrative dashboards. If you're a site admin or server admin, you've probably used them before. I'll go to them right now, right? I'm logged in here as a site admin. Here's server status. And I have all these dashboards right now, right? And there's one of them, let's see, we can do stats for load times. This is useful information. But out of the box in Tableau, only the site admins and server admins can see it. Would it make sense to share load time stats, with the owners of the individual workbooks, right? So that if I own these views and I see that, oh my gosh, this thing's suffering, it's averaging like, 9 seconds to load, I might want to performance record and do something with this. Is there anything we can do to do that? And the answer is yes. Unfortunately, Tableau doesn't allow us to just download these from the admin view, which if anyone from Tableau is on here, why? Like, just let us download this. Don't make us go shamefully lurking in the application directory to, sort of find this. But until that happens, let me show you how to go shamefully lurking in the application directory to make this happen. Okay, so here's where this lives. Your install directory, Tableau, data, tab service, temp, right? Let's go here. So I'm going now to my server. I'll have to log in again. We'll do that now. And realize that I also, as I'm logging in here, realize that I have navigated to this folder because I loaded the workbook, right? And I navigate here, I'm looking in my VizQL server. This is the processor service in Tableau that actually renders these things. And I can generate this file here. It's not in that instance of VizQL server. So let me try this instance. And if I go and search here, I should be able to see this thing pop up. It'll give a name like admin visport. I need to be in VizQL. Just a second. VizQL. Here we go. We should see this thing pop up. Tab admin views, right? Okay, so this is in memory so that the application can actually read this. I can go copy this thing. I'm not going to now because I already did. I can copy this thing. I can paste it, right? And then once I paste it, I can modify it so that I can get in here. Like here's tab admin views, copy, right? So let's rename this and let's just add the TWB extension to it. Okay, and once we do this, right, once we take this file that was in memory, add TWB to it. Yeah, we'll still do this. We've already done this. I actually get a Tableau workbook that I can then open. And once I open it, I can actually connect to my repository because it's aiming at using different connection credentials at this point, and I can actually connect to my repository data and then use these workbooks. And at this point, if I like the particular visualization, I'm not going to do it because I've already done it. I'll show you in a second here. If I already like the visualization and I don't want to change it, like I can just republish it in such a way where other people can see it, right? And like that's what I've done right here. Like I downloaded this and then like I modified it a little bit. Here we go. I've downloaded this. I modified the data source, and now I can go publish this, right? Because it's connecting to my data source, and we can I can share it with people who aren't necessarily site or server admins, and they can take advantage of it, right? So pretty cool. And if this is already what you want or close to what you want, by all means just do this, just republish it so other people can see it, and move on. You could create something the same or similar using insights data, but if this is what you need, then by all means just use this. So that's sort of our second of three main approaches. So first use insights data. If insights data doesn't have what you want or your administrative dashboards do, then use it, connect just like I showed you. And then finally here, well, if neither has what you're looking for and you have to go off piste, this is kind of how to do it. There's a whole bunch of resources here to help you. Stick to the data dictionary, alter insights or administrative data when you can, try to benchmark to the former or Tableau Server interface. Use the Postgres views first with the Tableau user, and then the tables, the read-only user. I find that's a good way to get acquainted with the data. But realize that you can connect to this data, using other tools than Tableau, and there's sometimes reasons to do that, right? Like here, I'm clearing one of the tables. It's called View Stats. Let's see if I'm connected. Yeah, so I'm querying view stats from Tableau Server, right? And I'm getting a record out of there, and it's actually how many times I've viewed a workbook, and I can actually see all my tables there. This can be handy when you're working with some of the bigger data sets because you can do your modeling in this case it's Visual Studio Code. If you have a large data set, you can filter on it or return just the top 100 records and sort of do your work there. But you'll notice the table I'm returning is called view stats. It's actually a view, and it's showing a particular workbook. We can actually go into the application and see the same information, right? So it's all related. Like I can go into the application here. It's showing workbook viewers and views. It's showing that's the name of the dashboard. There's 3 views, and I'm getting counts for all of this, right? So notice workbooks 1, 2, 7, 6. Well, I can go here. I can refresh this, right? And I'm loading it again. And then if I refresh here in the application, that 1276 number should increase when it registers the view, right? Because I mean, the application's using the same data source. Yeah, there we go, 1276, right? I can go here. I should be able to rerun this query again and show the increase in views. Now it's up to 1279. So I mean, that's how closely this is connected. Another source, because this is Postgres, is called Postgres admin. Same sort of thing. And in this case, I'm going to the view stats table. But here I'm just saying, hey, show me the SQL. And there's a special word for this SQL. It's called DDL, or data definition language, right? And it shows me actually how this table was created. And as we scroll down, we have comments. Comment on tables and comment on columns, right? And this is coincidentally the same comments on tables and columns that you're going to find here, right? So if you want to query these comments and columns or just have quick access to them, pgadmin is a really nice option for exploring this data. Moreover, it separates the tables. Like if we go up here, You can see that we're in work group. We separate the tables, from the underlying views. With that, I will get you some of the. I'd hope to spend a lot more time showing you some of the use cases, but let's do what we can. Let's stay with the theme. Here's view stats, right? And let's go look at a use case for view stats that's making good use of the view stats data. So a question that a lot of people will ask, about their Tableau data is, hey, who's using it? I made a dashboard. It's supposed to support, some part of the business. Who's using it? This is something that I created using view stats. The technique here is called, I think, dynamic analysis is what Tableau recommends, and this is sort of an example of that. So in my first sheet, I'm just showing a high-level view of dashboards that can be filtered, ranged by the number of distinct users who have viewed them, right? So I'm going to click on one. It's called the reports portal, and at this point, I can link directly to the dashboard if I want to view it, or I can just go see the details. I'm going to see the details. All of this is being generated from the Postgres repository data, right? So here's my dashboard. Okay. This reports portal has been viewed 5,000 sometimes in the past 14 months. And then I get an average 15.1 distinct viewers, per month, right? Down here, I take all of the views and I separate them out. I show a monthly average as well as a total number of views, right? We go beyond that. We say, hey, let's see the viewer frequency, diving deeper into our data. What are the users who have seen? Who are the users who have seen this in the past 7 days? Right, and we order them by color intensity. So people who use this a lot, you can see, with the shade, and we can actually even go download summary data. So this is a common business question: who's using my stuff? And we use, in this case, the Postgres view stats table, joined with a few others, to actually allow people to explore this. So we keep this open to all of our dashboard publishers and actually people who aren't publishers, and they can reference it and figure out, hey, who's looking at their stuff. And this is just how the data is modeled. Here's the central view stats table, and just joins to tags, workbook sites, and system users. Oh, I have so many more fun use cases, but we're almost out of time. So let me show you something that's usually pretty popular. We can look at something called stale content. And by the way, stale content you can get from two places. You can go search the community and forum resources, and you'll find some posts with like a stale content dashboard. But if you're in version 2020 or beyond, 2020.2, 2020.3, there's actually a stale content dashboard added to the pre-built administrative views. So I would use that one instead, right? Like keep this priority, order. But if you're not on 2020, then you can certainly go off PIS, go to Tableau Community, and find this dashboard. But this dashboard gives us some filters to find stale content. So we can filter by site, the age of the dashboard, how many times it was accessed, who the owner is, and so on. And so when we click on it, we can actually say, hey, email owner or go to workbook. The times accessed and age of the dashboard are actually parameters. So we can actually change these. And as we change these parameters, more or fewer dashboards will be added to this. So, when you actually have this and published it, it could be, hey, people, you have old content here, consider deleting or archiving it. Or you could have something like this and you could just download the data yourself, get like a workbook ID, right? Have your list of workbook IDs. You could write an application, say in Python, and you could make API calls to actually download, archive, and then delete, these workbooks or data sources or whatever. So once you have this data, there's a whole lot you can do with it. With that, we're close to 12:50. I'll stop if there's maybe time for one question. And again, through Jen, I'll make sure that all these annotated resources are available to you. So is there maybe a question, and we can do that, and then Jim will share.
So I didn't see any questions come in through the Q&A. If anybody has those, type those now, and we can answer at least one now, and we can, Joe can answer the rest after the call. I did have one question, Joe. Did you show us, so the two use cases you showed us, would you say those are the two most common that you have built out of, ask? And were either of those DIY, or did you pull them, did you use a template from one of the two resources you mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. Great questions. The two resources that I showed, the one I did myself, the views and viewers one, where we were saying, hey, here's all the dashboards, who's looked at them and when. And then the other one with the stale content was something that I got from the community. It's actually a query. I can actually show you the query. Like here's the query for the stale content data, right? So, I just, took this query, connected to my repository, dropped in the custom query, and then the data was modeled for me. And then, coincidentally, Tableau is now including this out of the box, with 2020 versions. I have use cases all over the place. Like these are all different use cases that I was going to show if there was time. And, a good many are things that I've just sort of done. Some others are from the insights data. But, if you're sort of new to this, I would stick to that priority list. Start with the insights data. If you're not getting what you want there, look at the administrative dashboards. And if you're not getting what you want there, then do it yourself and, go to the community and, sort of create what you need to. Does that
Okay.
answer your question?
Yeah. I will just ask, did you happen to put like your top, like for the ones that are the pre-made, did you happen to include any of your favorites or anything in your PowerPoint slide for anybody that might reference this later?
Yeah, I didn't because I haven't cleaned them up yet. I've linked to them
Okay.
here, like sort of for my reference, but I haven't cleaned them up. I think what I've created, like I mean, I can put in the stale content that I modified. I need to find out whose it is to give them credit, and then I
Yep.
can clean up the viewers and views stuff. Although it may take a week or two with some things, and share that. But yeah, absolutely, I'm happy to share a couple of those.
All right. And before we turn it over to Jim, one more question is, can you pronounce your last name for us again?
Oh yeah, it's pronounced Cornibe. But Jen, I
Cornibe.
think you went with like the original French, pronunciation, and they dropped the accent aigu when they, came over to the United States.
All right. Well, there you go. We also got a request. Hopefully you can come back again and possibly do a focus on just use cases. Maybe we'll see Joe again in the near future.
I'd be happy to. Hey, thank you so much. Stay well, everyone.
Thank you so much, Joe. Now I will turn things over to Jim, who's going to talk us through some order of operations.
Okay, thank you, Jen. Let's just get this going here. Okay, hey, first of all, I want to thank you for allowing me to speak here at the Pittsburgh Pug Group. And I hope you're all safe and sound. I grew up in Northeast Ohio, and I know what a foot of snow looks like, and it can be really, really challenging out there. I have to make a disclaimer. I am not a Tableau employee. I am a Tableau ambassador, and because I am not a Tableau employee, anything I say here cannot be construed to be a commitment on Tableau or Salesforce's part. Okay, now I had to do that. Some lawyers tonight in Seattle are going to sleep a whole lot better because we have to get that out of the way. Today, I want to talk to you about the order of operations. And I know you got quite a mix of people in your users group. So for some of you, this is going to be old hat and it's going to be, yeah, who doesn't know that? But there are other people on the call today. I'm going to guess maybe they're saying, well, what's the order of operation? I don't really understand what that's all about. Well, we're going to get to that. First, I want to give you just a little bit of my background. I am not a data scientist, and I am definitely not a system admin guy. I'm actually an engineer, and I found when I had to learn Tableau, I had to kind of translate what was going on into things that I could understand, and that's part of what I'm going to share with you today. I've been using Tableau for about 5 years. I started working with a client who really insisted I learn Tableau. He said, "Well, look, we're going to do our reporting on Tableau. I want you to learn Tableau, and I want you to assist us with that." I tend to be a type A guy, and once the door was open, I kind of went overboard. And I am a 4-time Tableau ambassador, and just recently I won a Vizzy for being the most technically sound. Enough about me. Let's talk about the order of operation. I like to think of the order of operation as 10 steps. You might have seen some people present and they talk about 8 steps. I like to talk about all 10 steps. And the order of operation is nothing more than the sequence that Tableau goes through when you create one of your visits. What's actually going on when you load data into Tableau, you're going to start with some sort of data file. It's either going to come from maybe an ERP system, maybe a published data source, or an Excel spreadsheet. You're going to bring that data into Tableau, and for each one of your worksheets, you're going to create a subset of that data that's applicable to that one sheet. And you can kind of think of that sheet as an Excel sheet. It doesn't really look like that, but it's got rows and columns. And the first thing Tableau is going to do, it's going to create headers on the rows and columns. We're going to filter those headers, and that's the structure of the table for that specific worksheet. Then we're going to load a lot of values into that worksheet. We're going to do some data manipulation. You're going to have some calculations in there. You're going to do some table calculations. And you're going to decide what the viz is going to look like. Is it going to be a bar chart or a line chart, or maybe even the dreaded pie chart? The sequence that you go through in creating that viz is the order of operation. I like to think of those 10 steps in the order of operations in 3 groups. The first 2 groups operate at the workbook level. The remaining 8 steps are at the worksheet level. Now, the first 2 steps are data filters, the extract filters and the data source filters. Those filters, once again, operate at the workbook level, and they're going to reduce the size of the data that you're actually bringing into that workbook. And if you reduce the size of the data that's in the workbook, the performance of the workbook is going to be faster. Very easy to use. You just go to the data source tab, and I was watching Joe, and I noticed that you could see those on some of his visits also, or some of his slides also. Go to the data source tab, upper right-hand corner. You can see the filter there. You either add or edit a filter. Some boxes are going to open. You pick up to add a filter. Then you get a selection of the dimension or measure that you want to filter, and select what you want to include in the book. And that data is going to be in the book. The data that's filtered out is not in the book. You got to kind of remember that, because sometimes you're going along and you say, well, I've just got 2 years of data in here, the 2018, 2019 data, and then you want to go back and get the 2017 data. You never brought it into the workbook, so it's not there. But the first 2 steps will allow the performance of your workbook to improve rather dramatically. The next 3 steps are the real important steps, or at least from my point of view, they're the real important steps, because it's those 3 steps where you make the data table structure for each one of your worksheets. So on a worksheet level, in steps 3, 4, and 5, you're creating the headers on the rows and columns for that sheet. And the 3 steps are the context filters, the creation of sets, fixed LODs, and top-end calculations, and then the application of dimension filters. And we're going to look at each one of those individually. Context filters are really misunderstood. Very often out on the forum, we'll get questions like, hey, I want to make a calculation that ignores the filter. How do I go about doing that? Well, Tableau doesn't ignore data. It doesn't ignore filters. When you design your workbook and when you write your calculations, you're defining the order in which filters are applied. And if you apply a filter, or if you apply a dimension in context, you apply a filter to that dimension, that filter is applied before the LOD is calculated in step 4. If it's in the dimension filters, it's filtered after the LOD is calculated. Let's take a look at how that works. We're going to look at this very simple data set. And I encourage you, particularly the newbies out there, if you're going to learn a new feature, or you're going to learn how to use something different, make up a small data set. Make up something that's, a 3x4 data set, so you can look at it. You can say, well, wait a minute, that's not what I expected to see, and then you can go back and correct it. This data set is just very simple. We've got some fruits and vegetables, and what I want to do is I wrote an LOD here, and we're going to open that up. Very simple LOD. All this does is says, look, for each type, which is either a fruit or a vegetable, I want to sum the total cost. And we look at that, and here's the LOD over here, and we can see that the total cost is price times quantity, gets us a cost. The total for fruit is $5.75, and sure enough, the LOD has told us that in every case, $5.75 is the total cost. I've also got produce over here on filter, and it is in context now. You can tell it's in context because it's grayed out. So we've got produce in the context filter. Now I want to filter out bananas. We've sold out of all the bananas. I want to filter out bananas. And immediately we can see, well, wait a minute, the LOD has changed. So now the LOD is telling us that the total cost is $3.75. It's $3.75. It changed because the produce dimension is in context. We filtered out bananas. Bananas were filtered out before the LOD was calculated. Had we left produce in context, the LOD would have been calculated and then the filter applied afterward. So you can control whether the LOD has the dimension in or out by either placing it in context or not placing it in context. In context, it filters before the LOD is calculated. Out of context, it's filtered after the LOD is calculated. Let's see what happens with sets and top N. Same way, same data set. All I've done is created a top N calculation or a set on the produce name again. And we're going to look at the top three. And I've just included the inset and the outset here. So you can see when we start here, the inset includes apples, bananas, and green beans. I'm just going to hide the outset so it makes it a little bit easier to see. Once again, I've got produce name in the context filter, which says we're going to filter before the top N is calculated. And once again, I'm going to take bananas out. And when I take bananas out, all of a sudden, the top N, or the top three in this case, become apples, green beans, and spinach. That's because bananas were filtered out before we calculated the top N. Had the produce name not been in context and the filter applied after the top three were calculated, we would have ended up with only two values in the top N, or the top three, apples and green beans, because the filter was applied after the top three were calculated. We put bananas back in, bananas will appear in the inset again. They'll be in the top three. This is a question we get all the time. They say, well, you know, I did the top N and I'm only seeing two values, or why am I not seeing all three values? And it's because where the filter was applied, whether it was in context or it was not in context. Okay, the fifth step in the order of operation are dimension filters. And I know you're all familiar with this because this is probably the second or third thing that you ever applied. Dimension filters are very easy to use. If we take a look at a discrete dimension filter, you've seen data like this before. This is just from the Superstore data set. We've got categories, subcategories, and we got sales by year. If I filter out office supplies, not only does the view change, but the structure of the data table has changed also. All those records associated with office supplies are no longer in the data table for this particular view. We filtered them out. Dimension filters can also be applied to continuous dimension, like a date filter here. And you're familiar with how a slider would work on a date filter, and we can filter data in and out. And once again, we're filtering data out of the table that underlies this particular worksheet, and we're changing the structure of the data in the process. Well, as we go through the first 5 steps of the order of operation on each worksheet, we've created the structure of that data table. If you were to take a look at Superstore data, there's about 10,000 rows of Superstore data. But by applying filters and the way we apply filters, and also the top N and set determination, you filter the data out of the data set. So maybe you've only got 100 or 150 rows of data actually in the data that in the particular worksheet that you're looking at. Once we've defined the structure of the data table on the worksheet, then the next 6 steps actually load that data table with values. We can manipulate that data using some include, exclude instructions, your own table calculations, apply measure filters, do some grand totals, and finally, the last in the order of operation is the table calculations and the forecast calculations. Okay, let's take a look at how some of that is done. I want to talk about blending data. I'm not a real fan of blended data, to be honest with you. My preference, obviously, is to join data sets or to union data sets together. But there's times when you have to use blended data. And that happens in the 6th step of the order of operation. Remember, the data structure is already set. The rows and columns have been defined. All the filters have been defined. And now we're going to bring in blended data. Well, the cases where you want to use blended data is if you're bringing in data from different data sources. Very often you have to use blended data. The other application is when you have data at different levels. And we're going to take a look at a little data here. We've got some data at the year level, and we've got other data at the month level, and that data has to be blended. You can't join that effectively. Now, a couple of things to think about whenever you blend data. First of all, the data is always aggregated at the level of the relationship between the data sets, between the link in the data sets. And once you've blended data, you limit the functionality that's available to you in Tableau. I've got a data set here. It's just sales data, and it's at the year and quarter level and by category. And along with that, I've also got some goals. And those goals are at the year level. So I've got data at 2 different levels, and I've got to bring it together in the same workbook. Well, I would blend the data to do that. So in the blended view, I would bring sales to the viz first, and it becomes the primary data set. You can tell by the little blue check mark on it. And then I would bring the goals to the viz, and it's the secondary data set. And you can tell by the red mark. And if you look at the data, you can see, well, I've got the average goals, and it's the same for every quarter throughout both years by category. Now, we just looked at the data and we said, well, wait a minute, that's not right. I had different goals for 18 than I had for 19. Well, what's going on here? Well, let's take a look at the blended relationship. And if you're familiar with like 2019, they've changed some terminology here. So when you see edit blended relationships, I think that used to be called the links or the just the relationships. Okay, my primary data source is the sales data. My secondary data source is the goals data. And the relationship right now between them is just at the category level. So I want to come in and I want to take a look and add, because we want to be connected at the year level also. I want to add to that relationship. So now we're looking at category by year. And when we do that, you can see that sure enough, now we have different goals for 2018 and 2019, but they are the same for each quarter because that's the level of the data in the secondary source. And that's as far as we can go with this data. Okay. Now that takes us to step 7 in the order of operation, and that's the include and the exclude LOD functions. LOD functions come in 3 types. There's fixed LOD, which is going to represent about 80% of the use cases. And then the other 20% are divided between the include and exclude. And this is kind of a little confusing for most users. Include and exclude, well, first of all, fixed LODs affect the structure of your overall data. When you're creating an LOD, you're actually creating another layer in your data set at a higher level than the grain of the data. Include and exclude is working on the values that are in your data set. Okay. Now, to look at the include function, I just want to look at this data set. It's a data set that I created. I got a couple of customers. I got a couple of different product lines. I got a sporting product line and a toys product line. I've got some products and I've got some colors. And this is the type of data that a product manager, and I spent years being a product manager, this is the type of data that a product manager would look at frequently. Let's see what happens with an include statement. And I'm going to show you what the include looks like. This is a very simple include structure. It just says include the product, and at the product level, I want to see the sum of the quantity. And in this viz, if I excuse me, if I'm below the level of the include statement, if I'm below the product level, the average that you would get by just bringing quantity to the data set and the result coming out of the include function are identical. We're just looking at a level below the product. At the level of the product, we're beginning to see that, wait a minute, these are different. I am looking now at the average across the product and not below the product, not at the color level. So if I take a look at the average across the product, I can see the difference. And this is the type of thing that a product manager would want to look like. It says, I don't really care about colors. What's my average overall for what I'm selling in that product? Or at the product line level, once again, I am now looking at the average of these two values at the product line level. The include function is giving me the overall average for customer one in terms of sports or in terms of toys. And that's the sort of thing that a product manager would want to look at. He would not want to look at the overall average of the individual records is 12.3. Now it's the value I want is 24.5. Exclude, which is going to represent about 5% of the cases, works on the dimensions and the values that you see in the viz itself. I like to look at this use case where we're looking at sales by state, but I also want to see the overall sales in the region. And this is just Superstore data, and it's sales at the individual state level. And I've created a calculation for, and I've got to find this here. When we went to this new look, here it is. Okay. When 2020.3 came out and we got the new relationship and then the new look in the data paid panel, I'm still a little confused. It probably confused some of you because I've certainly seen a lot of questions on why we do this come up in the forum. This is just a simple exclude statement. And the way you would use this statement and the way you would read this statement, if you look at the viz, we've got two dimensions in the viz. We've got region and we've got state. This is for this calculation. I don't want to use the state dimension. I want to exclude it from the calculation. So exclude the state and give me the sum of sales. So anything above the level of the state in this worksheet is region. So now I'm going to get the regional sales because I've excluded the state. And it's the type of thing that you might want to use if you wanted to see also the percent of state sales to the region. You might want to do this calculation where we're just taking the sum of sales and we're dividing it by the sum of the LOD that's excluding the states. So now when I hover, I can see in the Western region, for example, that California represents 63% of the total for the entire region. You're over here in Pennsylvania. Well, Pennsylvania represents 17.2% of the Eastern region sales. Eastern region sales were 678, where the state sales were 116.5. We've excluded the state to determine the regional sales and then determine the percent of sales. That's how exclude works. Takes us over to step number 8 in the order of operation, and that's where we apply measure filters. Now, measure filters work on the values that are in the data table. We're not filtering structure anymore. The structure filtering ended up in step 5. In step 8, we're looking at the values that are loaded in the table, and we want to filter on those values. Now, for this example, I want to go back to this, the sporting goods again, and I want to filter on quantity. When I drag quantity to the filter shelf, this box opens up, or this window opens up. And we've got a number of choices on just exactly how we want to filter. This top entry says all values. In my speak, I look at it and I say, well, it really should say at the row level. And what this will do, based on the viz itself, this will filter at the row level for your worksheet. We're going to use that here. It opens up another box, and I want to see it everything that's less than 15. And we can apply that. And you can see by applying that filter, first of all, we know it's at the row level because there's no aggregation here. It's just quantity. We can see all the rows that are less than 15. We could also look at the aggregate level. And we're going to do this again. We're going to drag a filter up there, and the box opens up, and we get our choice of how we want to apply the filter. What's the aggregation we want to look at? Sum is the default, but you could use average or median or count or standard deviations or variances. We're just going to look at median and apply the same filter. And now we're seeing all the data where the median is less than 15, but we're seeing the total quantity, but we're seeing the values where the median is less than 15. Okay. The ninth step in the order of operation is the application of grand totals. Grand totals are pretty easy to use. On the analytics tab, we can just simply grab totals and bring it to the viz. We got our choice of how we want to apply it. You want to apply it at the subtotal level, the column total, or the row level. We're going to apply it to columns. And we have grand totals at the column for the columns. We could also apply it at the subtotal level, and you get the subtotals for each one of the major partitions or the major groups, as well as a grand total for all of them. Now, there's an issue when you're working with aggregated data. I want to show you this calculation. This calculation is a moving average. And the way you would read this, it says, I want to see the average of the last 4 values. -3 plus this one is 4 values. I want to see the average of 4 values. Now, when I look at that on a running basis, I won't say anything for January, February, or March because I need 4 values. So this would be the last 4 months. This is the moving average, and so on and so forth. But we get down to the grand total, and there's no value in the grand total. And we'll get questions all the time that say, why won't I see values in the grand total line for a calculation like this? Well, if we step back from that and look, we say, well, what's the average of a moving average? What's the grand total of a moving average? And that's why you don't see a total in the grand total line, but it can be very confusing. Okay, now the last step in the order of operation are table calculations. Table calculations are very, very useful, and you ought to feel very comfortable with them if you come from an Excel background like I did, because you're working on a data table, and you can kind of think of it like your Excel table, and we're working across the columns or we're working down the rows. Now, a couple things to think about table calculations. Table calculations are always aggregates, okay? We're working with not a single cell of data, but we're working with an entire row of data or a column of data or a portion of the data set. So they're always aggregated. And you're going to determine both what we call the scope and the direction for that calculation to be applied. Calculations are applied across the rows or down the tables. Using a table calculation is very easy. We've got sum of sales by month, and if we open up the calculation, we can apply a quick table calculation, and we have a number of options to choose from. We can also write our own, but for today, we're just going to look at the percent of total. And right away, Tableau is going to calculate the percent of total, but it's calculating it across the rows. And that's not really what we want to see. We want to see the calculation down by month, what percentage of sales each month was. So we can open the caret again, and we can compute using, now we're going to change the direction from across to the direction going down, and we get the breakout of sales by month for the entire year. And if we were to go back and actually pull totals on here, hopefully that's going to be 100%, and sure enough, we did it right again. Okay. Now, one of the real advantages of using LODs, and I overuse LODs, is that I can create a layer in the data set that's at a different level than the grade of the data. It's at a higher level of the data. If you think of your data being like in the shape of a pyramid, the base of that pyramid is the grain that you entered the data as you enter the data into the table. I'd like to look at a higher level, and we can calculate an LOD to do that. Very often we'll have a user come in and they say, hey, I want to look at the rank of my subcategories and how that changed by segment over year. Sounds like a pretty involved calculation, and it turns out it's relatively easy if we use a LOD expression first. To create that layer in our data set. And the way you would read this in words would be say, hey, take all the combination of segment, subcategory, and the year of the order date. And at that level, sum the sales and save it so I can use it later. And I'm going to call it this LOD segment subcategory sales. Save those various data points at that level so that I can use them. Now I can come back later and I can rank the sales at that level, at the segment subcategory year level. I can rank those using a calculation and using a calculation like rank unique. There's a number of ranking functions. All of them are table calculations because we're working down an entire row of that data, so it has to be a table calculation. And all this does is it says, hey, sum the LOD we calculated before, and the LOD expression creates a level, but that at that level, aggregates. So we'll come back and we'll sum the LOD, and I want to see those values descending. We can drag that to our viz. And I'm just going to clean that up. And sure enough, we've got our ranking, but it doesn't look right. Well, we wanted the ranking going down the rows, not across the columns. So we can open up that caret again and go to Edit Table Calculation, and a window is going to open up. And this window allows us to define how we want that table calculation calculated. What's the scope and what's the direction? If this box is checked off, you'll see the highlighted area tells you both the scope and the direction. The way it was calculated was at the table across, so each row is individual, and we're going across the table. That's definitely not what we want. We'll come down to the specific dimension. We want to rank it at the subcategory level. So that was right, but now we've got the entire table at the subcategory level. That's not what we want at all. I want it by year at the subcategory level. Now we're getting closer, but we're still seeing numbers like, 65, 68, that sort of thing. Now, I know there's only 17 values that we're going to work with. So I want to restart that every year. Now that's what we wanted to look at. Now we can see, and what the user can see how his subcategories ranked by segment by year. So In 2016, for example, phones were first in the consumer segment and the corporate segment, and third in home office. By the time we got to 2019, phones were fourth in corporate, first in the consumer segment and the home office segment. Now there's one other application, one other things that LOD or table calculations do, and that's allow you to navigate around that data table. Okay. There are 5 functions that you can use to navigate around the data table. First is the first row or column. Last is the last row or column. First plus 1 would be the second. First plus 3 would be the fourth. Last minus 1 would be 1 to the left off the last column. Index is just the sequence of columns, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, across a partition. Previous value will return the immediately preceding value, and it's very useful for filling up voids in your data set. And then lookup allows you to specify from the cell you're in what direction you want to go and how many cells you want to go, and retrieves the value that's in that cell. And those are your table calculations. Well, when you think of the order of operations, think of those 10 steps. Each time you create a worksheet, and I want to be specific about worksheet, you're creating a data table that underlies that worksheet. And that data table is created sequentially as you go through that specific order to end up with the viz that you end up on each worksheet. That's what I wanted to share with you today. I hope it was informative. I hope you learned something. The workbook that you saw today is out on my Tableau public site, and you can take a screen print here, go out to my Tableau public site, you can download it. You can download anything that's out there. My site is dedicated to the Newbie Plus. There's a lot of different types of information out there. And I have also written up, and it's on my blog, an explanation of what each step in the order of operation does and how to go about using it. Okay. Jen, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. If there's any questions, we can go from there.
Yep, so we got one question. It was, at what level should we be filtering to improve performance of blended data sources? And then he said more specifically, what filter level will include or exclude records from the secondary data source?
Okay, there's a 2-part question there. Now, I got to be careful how I say this, because I tend to be a little sarcastic at times, okay? The best way to improve performance with blended data sources is not to use them, okay? I am very much in the camp of joining your data sources or using unions in your data sources, not blending data, okay? And the reason I would suggest you don't blend data, and I want to go back to the order of operation, is because it limits the availability of functionality. You can no longer filter across data sources once you've blended data sources. And I believe that was the second question. And along with that, you can't use LOD expressions with blended data sources. So we're talking about include and exclude and blended data sources, and you're not going to use them with blended data sources. And if you think about the order of operations, all that structure in the data table on that specific worksheet was determined before you pulled data out of the blended data source. What's actually happening, and I don't want to get too nerdy here, is there are 2 passes that take place pulling data when you have a blended data source. One pass goes out to the primary source, the other pass goes out to the secondary source. The data from the secondary data source is aggregated before it's brought to the primary source, and those individual records are no longer available in the primary source. So you cannot go back and forth across, other than at the link, okay? The individual records aren't available, so you can't filter once you've blended the data. Okay, did that address the question, or did I miss part of the question?
I think that addressed the question, Dave, if you want to add to that or, say in the chat. But I think he was asking too, once you've blended, then you can still use fields from that secondary data source to just filter some things out, which I believe is correct. You can still filter from the secondary.
No, you cannot filter from that you have available at that source is at the, whoa, what happened? I disappeared for a second. I don't know whether I disappeared for you, but I disappeared for a second. At that point, only filtering can take place at the level of the link.
Okay. I think he added data source filter number 1, number 2, dimension filter on the linking field. I think is what he added there. Does that make sense, Jim?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct. That is correct. That is correct. Yeah, measure filters work on values. Maybe I missed that in the nuance of the question. Measure filters work on the values. You cannot work on the structure anymore. You cannot go across dimensionally other than at the link. And whoever expressed that as dimension filters at the link and measure filters thereafter, that is correct.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Jim. If anybody has any other questions, obviously you can reach out to him. He has his Tableau public site, his blog post, and I'm sure he'll be sharing information with me that I will share with you guys in a follow-up email. Did you have something else to say, Jim? Sorry.
No, it was a pleasure being with you guys today. Hey, stay safe, enjoy the holidays.
The last thing I want to get to everybody is a chance for you guys to win some gift cards. We're going to play quick Christmas trivia, and then I will wrap things up by giving you some information on our next meeting. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. In 1 second. Okay, so all you guys have to do here to participate is just go to the address you see here at the top of the screen, www.kahoot.it. It's easiest on your phone since we're on the Zoom here, and just enter in this game pin, and you should see your name starting to pop up on this field. And the great thing about this is, so hopefully this is going to work well. This is the first time I've used this app. We've done surveys before. Now actually be able to tell who the top answers are, and I can actually send you a prize. We'll give you a second to jump on here, and then we'll get started. I still see people hopping on. Give you about another minute or so. I see about like a little over 50 on. About 33 people in so far. Still coming in. I'm gonna wait till we get close to our attendee number here. Okay, Kyle just joined. Maybe another couple of seconds. This won't take long. All right, so it looks like about everybody's in, so I'm going to go ahead and start. So now you should see the questions pop up on your phone. You have to answer on your phone, but you'll see the answer choices on the screen here. So question number 1, which Bing Crosby song is the best-selling single ever? And you are awarded for time as well, so Speed. Speed is your friend if you know the answer. Hurry up and guess. Oh, the answer is White Christmas. Let's see who got that right. Leading the board is Chris P right now. Let's go to the next one. Time's almost up. Here you go, it's actually Germany. Chris and Susan holding the first and second place here. Christmas theme palette premiered in St. Petersburg, Russia is the Nutcracker. Wow, looks like everybody got that one. All right, Chris, holding steady. Which much reviled Christmas edible is known for its long shelf life? It is a fruitcake. Which country did eggnog come from? Was England. Wow, the majority got that one right too. I did not do this good when I took this quiz. Right about halfway through. Here's a Pittsburgh one for you guys. Was the Pittsburgh Pirates, and I was surprised by this too. Apparently it was only the first 2 years, I think, that it celebrated the Pirates, and then it moved to traditionally now it's to celebrate the start of the shopping season. It looks like Kylie has taken the lead. What well-known Christmas carol became the first song ever broadcast from space? Jingle bells. Oh, that one got a lot of people. Let's see if the leaderboard changes at all. Oh, yes. All right, new top 3 now, right now. In Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, what was Mr. Scrooge's first name? Ebenezer. I knew that one. CJ is on fire. Someone needs to challenge. In the song Frosty the Snowman, what made Frosty come to life? An old silk hat. But the majority knew that one. All right, CJ's holding strong. True or false? Pittsburgh has its own New Year's Eve ball that actually rises instead of dropping as that seen in Times Square. job, guys. Got some of you. All right, 2 more questions. In Home Alone, where are the McAllisters going on vacation when they leave Kevin behind? Paris. All right. Oh, CJ lost his lead. Let's see if Robbie can hold it off for the final question.
All right, can you guys hear me? Can someone give me a thumbs up? For some reason, my phone dropped audio.
We can hear you, Jen.
Or let me know in the chat if you can hear me. 1 second.
Okay, you can hear me? All right, good. All right, sorry guys. Okay, back to our poll here. So now we're gonna see who takes the top 3. So in 3rd place, Sonia. 2nd place, LHS. And our winner here is Robbie. Congrats, guys. I'm impressed to those of you that knew that stuff. So what I'm going to tell you, the 3 of you right now, I'm going to drop my email in the chat, pghtug@gmail.com. So please just email me if you were one of the top 3 winners. I'm recording them down now, and I will have a gift card to send to you. Thanks everybody for playing. So just to wrap everything up, just going to go back to my presentation here real quick. So I'm going to stop sharing, share the PowerPoint. I hope you guys enjoyed that. So somebody asked to some community initiatives that you can get involved in if you are new to Tableau or just continuing to want to upskill. Hopefully everybody can see. I think I'm in the wrong presentation mode. That's fine. I'll just leave it up. So Makeover Monday, Workout Wednesday, Throwback Thursday. Hopefully you recognize a lot of these, and hopefully some of these are new to you. I didn't know about real world fake data. Whoops. I knew about the SDW challenge. So these prep and data is a semi-new one that's focused on Tableau prep if you're looking to up your skills there. Obviously Tableau has a lot of they have a lot of materials on their e-learning. So there's plenty of community initiatives. And again, all of these things listed here are run by people in the community and not Tableau themselves, except for the Iron Viz, right? There are feeder competitions and the actual Iron Viz is run by Tableau. But these all started as community initiatives. So again, practice makes perfect. The only way you're going to up your skills is by doing. So the more you can do, the better your skills will become. All these resources are also on Tableau Public. So public.tableau.com. And you just click on resources there at the top. Most of these things are described as well as links. I will also have links to these in this slide deck that I share. As far as our next meeting, again, the recordings for today and the meeting materials will be on our Google Drive, and I will share those as well in an email that I send up following this. But our next meeting is slated for Q1, so I'm aiming for February. Unfortunately, I think they will remain virtual for the foreseeable future. My call to action, guys, it is really becoming a struggle for me to run this group by myself. So if you do have any interest in helping me lead the group and put on these meetings, I'm hoping to get, every other month next year, keep them shorter, about 2 speakers, and have a little bit more of a frequency. But I do really need your help for 2 things: the call for speakers, and again, reaching out to really anybody. Even if you don't think you can contribute or you don't know what you could present on, we can work together to do that. If you want to come together with your group and again, just show how you're using Tableau, anything is appreciated. I would even love a compilation. If you just want to show a new trick you learned, if I get enough people, we can kind of have a tips and tricks sessions where various members of the community can show just something you've learned in the past, week, month, quarter that has really saved you a lot of time or, hardship at your job. So if you'd like to volunteer to speak, again, please reach out to me. If you have a particular topic that you want to speak on and you did not get to weigh in when you signed up for today, again, you can just email me at the email that you see, pghtug@gmail.com. If you want to just give me feedback and have suggestions for the sessions, again, I'm open to all things, especially if you'd like to help me run these things. My final note here would be, again, making sure if you're not getting the emails that I'm sending out, that means that you probably only registered here at the top, right? You only registered for the event where you see the RSVP button. Make sure that you go to our site, which is just usergroups.tableau.com/Pittsburgh, and just subscribe for updates. Then you're sure to get all of the communications that I send out. Again, I always do post them on LinkedIn and Twitter as backups, but that's really where you want to be subscribed to so that you get all of the latest information. That concludes our session today. So again, I just want to thank everybody for joining. I hope you got a lot of information out of this. And again, if it was too fast for you, we will share those resources so you can ask questions, reach out, and welcome people back if you want to hear more. So thanks everybody, and I hope you have a great day and a Merry Christmas. See you next year.